another Thunder Thursday on News OK Live. I'm Mike Sherman, sports editor of the Oklahoman, joined by my esteemed colleagues in the Thunder coverage area. First, from the ATL, where he's covering tomorrow night's game between the surprising Atlanta Hawks and the suddenly rising Oklahoma City Thunder, beat writer Darnell Mayberry.
Hello.
Looking large, Darnell, looking very large. From the Panic Room, right across the hallway here at 9000 North Broadway, also known as the podcast studio, Thunder beat writer Anthony Slater.
I'm actually not in the podcast studio. I'm across the way in another room, in the green room. I didn't know we had a green room, but I'm in it.
You've been missing out. The green room's great.
It is. It's nice. I feel pretty luxurious right now. I got some nice mirrors. I can look at myself while I talk. It's always good.
Geez.
Anthony, you're so chill, it's a mistake to call any room you're in the Panic Room. Speaking of chill, from his home in Norman, Oklahoma, columnist Barry Trammell. Hi, Barry. And from the newsroom, 9000 North Broadway, right below me, I believe now, 6th floor, columnist Jenny Carlson.
But not for long. We're moving downtown soon.
And we saw it today. Of course, Thunder Thursdays are brought to you by our good friends at Wheeler Chevrolet. Take that drive down I-40, save yourself some time and money. Let's talk about last night, a national televised game. The Oklahoma City Thunder, the suddenly resurgent Oklahoma City Thunder, pulls off an overtime win in Washington. Darnell, you were there. What did we learn about the Oklahoma City Thunder and its crunch time choices last night that maybe we didn't know before?
That sometimes the number 2 option is a good option. Kevin Durant was again the number 1 option on that final play. Washington did a terrific job of denying him the ball. Russell Westbrook improvised, came all the way to half court to get it. Back cut Bradley Beal, I believe it was, and scooted to the basket and got a layup. And, that's something that we've never seen before out of this team. So I think more than anything, we learned that number 2 sometimes could be a good option.
Barry, is there any chance that number 2 actually should or could be number 1 at crunch time for the Thunder?
I actually think improvising is always a decent way to go in crunch time because defenses get so set up. We get frustrated with the Thunder's last-second execution, but the truth of the matter is very few teams are successful in that regard. I think you're better off with Westbrook improvising than with Durant improvising. And I think teams that we saw it at the end of regulation, teams can strategize to take a play away from Durant. So I would like to see the ball in the hands of Russell more in the last 5-10 seconds.
Jenny, you had a cautionary or a caveat to that, but you also called that shot one of the easiest game winners you've ever seen.
It sure felt that way. I mean, John Wall was more statue than defender. And I think that sort of bleeds into what Barry's talking about. Defenses get so set on watching out for the kick when a guy drives on shots like that and situations like that, that they can't adjust. And we saw that. John Wall just stands there. And, I think Steven Adams was the one who set the pick coming off the top there, got some space between Westbrook and Nene, which opened up the lane. But it almost felt a little anticlimactic, guys, because you're sort of expecting, there to be a jumper, and are they going to make it? Are they going to miss? Is it going to be another overtime? Instead, it's like a 6th grade layup because the Wizards didn't do anything to adjust when Westbrook put his head down. So it was definitely I feel like one of the easier game winners I've seen in a long time.
Anthony,
it wasn't anticlimactic for me. I was on deadline.
You know what it was similar to? Do you guys remember Game 1 of the Heat-Pacers series? I think it was 2 years ago, where LeBron comes out, catches it, and Paul George kind of misplays it, and LeBron has an easy left-handed layup. It was actually really similar to that.
Yep.
How soon, of course, we forget Kevin Durant's excellence in these situations. He's made a ton of them, Anthony. Is that part of the reason why Westbrook was so open?
Yeah, I mean, 40 seconds earlier, I think it was like 35 seconds left in overtime. The Thunder were down 1, and Durant hit a fadeaway 3 to go up 2. I mean, that's just as big, if not bigger, a shot. If he doesn't make that, then Westbrook doesn't even have the chance for the game winner. So yes, that is why he was open, because they even talked about it post game. The Wizards went to double Durant, and that's what kind of had stuff scrambled, and that's why the lane was so open for Westbrook.
Guys, I just watched that replay. It didn't look to me like the Wizards' defense was moving any faster after the ball went through the hoop than before. Is this a case of the Oklahoma City Thunder taking advantage of a team that's not that good defensively?
Wizards are pretty good defensively. That was a terrible last play, and like Jenny mentioned, I mean, they were statues, they were in quicksand, whatever you want to say. But I mean, if you look at the numbers, and if you even look at the game last night, the Thunder went 4-22 in the second quarter. They didn't. I think they had 92 at the end of regulation. The Wizards are a good defensive team.
Darnell, I'll just throw this out to all you guys. This idea that there has to be a designated go-to guy with the game on the line. Is that something the Thunder should move away from? And should it open itself up to the possibility that any one of the number of people could be taking that shot?
I think if you're asking me, I think they should continue to get the ball to Durant, but at the same time, look for opportunities for other people to maybe benefit from Durant, possibly even being a decoy at times. I think that could catch defenses off guard a couple nights. Maybe have Anthony Morrow, who was the inbounder on that play. There wasn't much time left, 3.6 seconds, but he was an inbounder. He could have gotten the ball back if they got it inbounds cleanly. And we're able to run something. So things like that, I think, are there for this team to look for more, but I'm not going to ever advocate not getting the ball to Durant as much as possible.
Can anybody think of a precedent for a team that just lets whoever's got the best shot take it at the end of the game?
Well, I think the Spurs do it a lot. I don't study an individual team enough to know who does and who doesn't. But what I found interesting in that Durant situation last night, RFD talked about Morrow taking the ball out, inbounding the ball. I actually, on the replay, I studied it. 3.6 seconds, you got time to do all kinds of stuff. Anthony Morrow, who's a wonderful player in terms of his role, he threw the ball to Durant. He never entered the court. He just stayed out of bounds. Yeah. And to me, that's a sign that the Thunder, in the last second, 2, 3, 4, whatever, they throw the ball to Durant and they become spectators. And they check out and they expect Durant to shoot. He always does, but he is a playmaker. RFD mentioned it. Durant's an excellent playmaker. Let him do something with the ball that might lead to a pass. I would have loved to have seen Morrow sprint to the corner and take a shot there with a second left, and I think he would have been open.
I wonder if on last-second plays like that, given the time, given the emphasis on the star, if there's not some, like you see sometimes in football, where other receivers, the ball's not going to them, you don't see them run out the play quite as much. It's human nature. The ball doesn't go to me. I'm not ready for it. But in last night, that was a pleasant surprise, at least from the Oklahoma City Thunder, the fans' perspective. Speaking of surprises, this team is now on a roll, Jenny, 4 in a row. There's this feeling floating through the city that something's fixed, that the ship has been righted. Has it?
Well, it's definitely tilting in a much better way than it was, a week ago or so? I mean, a week ago, this team's coming out of that 5-day break. They go to Houston. Everybody thinks that they're going to have had a chance to get some things fixed, and instead they come out really flat, lose that game pretty handily. I think that was, there were sort of some warning signs going off at that point that, they'd been so bad the week before, and then to come out really with sort of lacking intensity and, focus, it seemed like, in that game. But ever since that Warriors game the very next night, they've really played better ball. Now, are these the best tests in basketball? Maybe not, but, to go and beat Orlando at Orlando the way they did, that's what this franchise and this team has done over the years against teams that they're that much better than. And we weren't seeing that before. I mean, just remember not too long ago, the Jazz come in here and they play them to the end. I mean, they weren't playing great then, and now we're seeing them put their, heel on teams' throats and win going away when they're supposed to. And then I think to be able to hang on last night, I thought that was good. I mean, Washington's a solid team playing improved defense. I think that was a legit test. There's going to be more coming, but I think you got to like the way this team's tilting now as opposed to where they were a week ago for sure.
Anthony, what got fixed?
I think defensive effort. You look at the last two games, they really didn't shoot that well. Miami, they only scored 94 points. Last night, they really only scored 92 in regulation. If you look back over the previous 2 weeks, 94 points and 92 points would have won them 0 games. But it won them the past 2 games, or at least it got them to overtime in one of them and won another of. So I think that's the biggest thing. They're winning games even without having their top level offense.
And Barry, we talked about this morning. They had 2 shot clock violations against the Wizards. Critical situations where the Thunder, just played defense for 24 seconds. Wouldn't let him get a shot off. Paul Pierce, a guy who hit some shots but certainly didn't look like himself. You think the defensive effort and the defensive rotations and everything is getting back to what we come to expect from the Thunder?
I think the signs are certainly there. They're playing. I think they're playing very solid, and Andre Robertson was good situationally last night, and Westbrook I thought was engaged the whole night. Steven Adams was a force. It was not. The Thunder played really good defense, I thought, on a night when Serge Ibaka didn't play that well. So that's a very good sign. They did a few things. Reggie Jackson didn't play as much as usual. That's one way to always improve your defense. So. They did some good things, and AC is right. This team has shown in the last 3 or 4 games, ever how long we want to go back, that they're playing better defense. That defense we saw for the 2 straight California games and that first quarter in Houston was just atrocious, but we haven't seen anything like that since.
Darnell, you're going to be a little bit of a disadvantage on this next question, so I'll skip over you and to Anthony, who posted it on his post-game blog. A very good blog, Anthony, by the way. Driving traffic right now on News OK. And it was the Scott Brooks mic'd up moment of all mic'd up moments, Anthony. It was a feel-good moment. Of course, a lot of these, they capture him and his encouraging, if everybody plays really well, we're taking everybody to go get a snow cone after this game. You're all good. But last night it was different. What did you like about that, Anthony? What made you post that one?
Well, like you mentioned, some of it's just because they're contractually obligated to not show strategic stuff that the coaches say. But last night, he kind of got after his team. We always talk about, is he okay with all the isolation heavy, offense? Does he understand that there needs to be more ball movement? During that second quarter, when they were really struggling, 4-22 shooting, it was a lot of contested jumpers with no passes. He got into them, and he was basically saying ours is better than yours. If you want to go check out the video, it's about a 15-second clip or so. But I thought that was beyond. I think that was his best in-game speech. We always do got to remember he had a really nice mic'd up segment back in the finals after the Thunder had lost, kind of telling his team to go shake the Heat's hand. That's probably his most memorable one, but I think last night was his best in-game mic'd up segment.
Jenny, I need you. You need Barry. Barry needs Darnell. Darnell needs Anthony. Do I need to talk more like that? I will.
Kumbaya, my lord.
Sing along, Barry.
Yeah, it's catching. Those are the types of things that sometimes you wonder. Is anybody saying that? Hey, let's do this together. And I think in those situations, especially, we're talking about late game stuff, maybe that could evolve. Doubtful. I think that it's real easy. I can't remember who said it, Barry. I think, for guys that when, they know Durant's going to get it, to stand around, but hey, it wouldn't hurt anybody to, sort of help each other out in those situations. Hey, I think Anthony's right. That was a different moment for us to see from Scott Brooks. And who knows? Maybe he says that stuff all the time.
Barry, this one seemed a little more eloquent. Did you sense that had any kind of impact on the Thunder and the way they played after the second quarter?
No, in fact, I was surprised everybody got fired up about it. I thought it was a little corn pole.
I'm sitting here
Here's the deal.
Wait, is that corn ball or corn pole?
It seemed like
thinking, am I the only one not impressed? Thank you, Barry.
No.
Here's the deal. Here's what and maybe he said, it depends on what he said before or after, the part they couldn't show. But here's what this ours and yours and all that stuff, that's just talk. The older I get, the less I am impressed by talk. Here's what he needed to say. Pass the ball! Let's go get Avery Johnson. We know Avery Johnson can say it. Let's go find Avery Johnson. Pass the ball.
Darnell, the passing was at least incrementally better after that. The Scott Brooks deserves some credit for the improved way this team is playing, especially on offense.
Yes, he does. He definitely does. And I think, I'm going to disagree with Slater a little bit here, shocking. And I'm going to say it's their offense that has really sparked the turnaround in play. If you go back and look at coming off this 5-day break, that 5-day break that they had, the offense was much better. Defense was a problem in the first quarter against Houston, but offensively they were moving the ball. They just weren't making shots. So I thought they came back out of that break playing great ball offensively. Then the next night, obviously, they score 127 points against Golden State at home, beats the best team in the league, and then 127 at Orlando. So I think, what's the best way to get guys buying in defensively is to keep them involved offensively sometimes. And I think that's what we've been seeing. They had 4 straight games with 25 assists or more. And I just think the ball is really moving. Guys are feeling a part of the team, and that's giving them giving them more of a desire to play better defensively. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing a little bit with this team right now. The offense is really leading the way to better performances on the defensive end.
Of course, the subplot, or maybe even the plot to last night's game, an Oklahoma City Star going home. Every time he goes home, his biggest fans here get a little nervous, Should we even bring it up? How should we talk to him about this? What should we say? Should we ask him, does he love Oklahoma City? So the question I have is, Darnell, how did it feel to go home yesterday?
For me, so to speak, or for Kevin? What are you asking?
You're the Oklahoma City Star. You're the guy who's back in D.C. I didn't see any DM 2016 shirts, but I got a feeling there must have been some love in the building. What's it like for you to go?
I heard the Washington Post had a whole big recruitment set up for him. And
oh man, my heart is dropping.
I'm not saying I'm always walking on eggshells around you every time you go back to the D.C. area. Please. Pledge your allegiance, your teamwork. I need you. You need Jenny.
You need me.
Come on.
It's a great city. I love the city, but I love Oklahoma more. How's that?
I don't know, something about in your heart, anything. Work that in. It makes me feel better. But seriously,
Oklahoma,
folks.
Oklahoma and sports is our turf. How about that? Something about it. When I have that on my hat, it just makes me feel pride.
And it all started with the hat, Darnell, didn't it? The sports is our turf hat. Someday that story will get told and shared.
You can't say Oklahoma without saying home. Aw, there it is.
Well, we miss you, Darnell.
All right, Scotty. Settle down, Scotty Brooks.
All jokes aside, somebody's dreams did come true last night. We got to see what somebody's wildest dreams look like. Anthony, Steven Adams, 20 rebounds. Come on. You had to be beaming with pride.
I would have liked the 20 points, 20 rebounds a little bit more, but he was very good last night. It was the third 20 rebound game the Thunder have ever had since moving to Oklahoma City. Serge Ibaka has the other 2. And I looked up the stat today. The Thunder Sonics franchise has had 20 rebound games since 1985-86. The player who has the most of them with 6 is Michael Cade.
Yes.
Kind of interesting.
And he probably rebounded some of those with slick stuff on his hands from that Jerry curl. Imagine grabbing those rebounds. Ball got to be pretty slippery.
But in regards to Steven Adams, he played great last night and against a very good front line. And the weird thing about Steven Adams is he seems to play better against very good front lines, which I guess is a good sign, moving forward. And Scott Brooks recognized it. He played him a season high 39 minutes. He played him a lot more than Serge Ibaka down the stretch, who was struggling. So, yes, I've been on this guy's bandwagon. I've been driving the bandwagon since before his rookie season, and I continue to drive it.
Darnell, all jokes aside, please speak frankly here. Have we crossed some sort of threshold with Steven Adams? Last night's game felt like something special. Right down to the screen he set opening Westbrook's lane up to the basket. Is this guy now ready for primetime NBA center?
I think it's still early. He's only played a season and a half. I guess The Miami game was the exact halfway point of his second season. So he's only played a year and a half. He's still 21. He's still got a lot of room to develop and grow. I wouldn't just take the 20 rebound performance and say that he's going to be, the next Bill Russell, like Slater probably already is thinking. But
hey, Reggie Jackson called him potential Hall of Famer last year. We got to remember that.
He could easily come out tomorrow night at Atlanta and have 2 rebounds. I mean, I think we should pump the brakes on him. I do like what I'm saying. Going back to that Christmas game, what he did against Tim Duncan, I think that was his best game of his career. The way he played on both ends, especially defensively, though, against Duncan, a Hall of Famer. And then some of the other games he's had this year with his scoring in the post, the way he's able to roll off of pick and rolls, and then his rebounding last night. So he's doing some really good things and developing at a rapid rate. But I think we got to slow down on the expectations because he could easily come out on Friday or the next couple of games and not live up to the expectations that people like us would set for him.
Barry, here's what Steven Adams did last night. It wasn't just rebounding the ball. It looked like he enveloped the ball. He surrounded it. It looked like nobody else had any chance for the ball when it was loose and anywhere close to him. And then there was the scene where Gortat and Nene took him to the ground. Took 2 people to block him out. It felt different. It looked different. Does the Thunder have a budding star on its hand at center?
Star, I don't think so, but they have a very good center, budding, developing center on their hands. Here's all you have to know. Scotty played him 38 minutes. 38 minutes, I think 43 seconds. That's all you need to know. Even played him a little bit with Perk, for crying out loud, which never happens. So he's only 21. He's very good last night. He's going to have some rough spots, but he's going to be a very good player, which is why you don't even answer the phone when the Metropolitans call you about Brook Lopez.
Guys, let's wind it up here. I was going to ask you about your story angles for the Cavs. Darnell's already got his in for the Hawks, but let's stay on this Anthony Slater, Steven Adams bromance topic.
Geez.
Here's the question. Who is your biggest coverage crush? The person you covered that maybe you could have been convicted for a bromance. Jenny, you're going to have to call it something else with you, obviously. Or maybe there could have been an application for a restraining order because you came so close. How about it, Barry? Who's yours?
With the Thunder?
Any team, any beat you've ever covered.
Who do I like talking to the most?
Yeah.
Athlete or coach?
Doesn't matter.
Howard Schnellenberger.
Howard, that sounds about right. There's video evidence. I think you said, I love Howard Schnellenberger.
I do love Howard Schnellenberger.
And I think you said it in the way that Gail Sayers said, I love Brian Piccolo. It was a sort of the same tone and tune. How about it, Darnell? Who fits your bromance?
I had to have covered that team on a daily basis or just in general?
Somebody you covered. Somebody.
Tyson Chandler.
Why?
He's one of the nicest guys I've ever covered in the NBA. Just a gentle giant. He's got a soft heart, big heart. He goes out of his way to be extra kind and considerate to people. Just a really, really genuinely nice guy.
Jenny, you want to disclose yours, or you want me to have Barry answer for you?
Who would Barry answer for me?
Come on, Barry.
Unmute.
He's trying to start something, and I'm not going to participate.
Jenny, who would it be?
I don't know. I'm sitting here trying to think of who I would put in that category.
Quinn Snyder comes to mind.
That is not. I never
Bang.
covered him, Barry.
I got something funny to say, and class is going to prevent me from saying it.
Very good. Very good.
All right. Well, you get off scot-free, apparently. I'm gonna. You know what? I think I'm gonna go down a little bit of Darnell's Boulevard and say David West. I always like dealing with David West, and I don't know why Barry's laughing. Barry, why are you laughing?
Every time I think of David West, I think of what he said to RFD one day in the locker room.
Which is?
Well, RFD came dressed pretty snazzy one day, and he said, "Darnell, you look like a Mexican preacher." I have no idea what that means, but it was funny then, and it's funny now.
He was good. Another one I'll throw out there. I knew him as a collegiate player. Now we know him as the Orlando Magic head coach. Jacques Vaughn was one of the most intelligent college athletes I've ever encountered. Great to deal with as a collegiate athlete when we crossed paths back at the University of Kansas.
I'll end it up by disclosing my irony of ironies. I would have to say that anybody who knew me back when I was a reporter, especially back when I was covering high schools, would say mine was Mike Gundy, without question.
That is pretty funny. You want me to give a couple? One or two?
Yeah, Anthony. Well, we already know yours. We already know yours.
Anybody more than Steven Adams? Holy cow!
Who else you got?
Marcus Smart, Markel Brown.
Okay, same team, but not either of those. LeBron Nash, he came in with all those high expectations, and he kind of had a reputation of, I don't know, people thought he was like this kind of ego maniac, and he never really was. He was always super nice, kind of like what you guys have mentioned with Tyson Chandler and David West. And I always kind of found myself rooting for him to reach some of the expectations. And one I think we can all agree on, I covered him in college. I know you guys covered him. Brandon Weeden was always really great to work with.
Weeden was top notch.
Fair.
Super duper. Of course, there's reasons why Anthony is not on the Oklahoma State beat right now, and he just outlined 3 of them.
Hey, you asked. I've only covered 2 teams ever: the Thunder and the OSU Cowboys. So it wasn't really, a lot of options for me to choose from.
Restraining order, please. Where do I fill one out? That's all for this edition of Thunder Thursdays. But you can stay with the best coverage team anywhere, every day at News OK and every morning in the Oklahoman.